Welcome to the Truth, Lies, and Consequences podcast. I'm your host, Charity Hill.
And I'm your host, Ebony Turner. So how you been doing, Charity?
I'm good, Ebony. How you been?
I'm doing good. Happy to be back to do another episode. It's been, about a month now. So
yeah.
a lot has happened over the month. Not a lot of craziness, just still working from home. Still getting stir crazy because been in the house all the time. Did have somebody try to steal my credit card information. Did I tell you about that?
No, that's not hot. We don't like that.
They tried to pull a scam on me real quick. So they called me, said somebody is trying to use my card information, and they sent me a text message with a code. I'm mad at myself a little bit. I gave them the code, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute. Why would my bank ask me to give them a code they sent me, right? Like the radar goes up a little bit.
Yep.
They knew I was going to get a text message from the fraud people, right?
Right.
So when I got that text message, they were like, "Oh, well, just say yes," because they made it seem like they were from the bank or whatever. Just say yes. This YES, and I'm like, "Nah, that don't feel right." So I said no, and they was like, "You said yes, right?" I was like, yeah, let me check," and I hung up the phone.
Honey, they weren't ready for you. But it's sad that people will do that. I'm like, please, if you would take that much ingenuity and really come up with something, you could save the world by now. But no, they want to be crooks. I can't stand it.
Working hard for my money. Go work for yours, please.
Right.
My coins alone.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I ran out the house, went to the bank. I cut the cards off and everything, and I got new cards and all that stuff. But it's scary because he had my name, and of course he had my number, and then he's got my card information and everything. So I was just like, if I replied yes, this man would have been like, and he was trying to purchase something from Target or something like that. Like, what do you need from Target for $200? Like, what are you getting? You know, so
an Xbox or something foolish.
Right now, could you just wait for your $1,400 or $1,200, $2,000, whatever we about to maybe getting from the government? Leave my money alone.
Exactly,
so
but no.
One of the events that I have had happen over the week. You had anything crazy or interesting happen on your end?
Girl, I'm sorry that happened to you. But no, over here, I had a birthday party for my girlfriend. Nice. So we had a good time hanging out. A couple of us got together, just a small intimate thing. So that was nice just to celebrate her and her milestone birthday. And then we had the holiday, Valentine's Day pass. So we kind of stayed low key. We had a little dinner. So, but yeah, things have been pretty mild. I'm glad the rain finally subsided a little bit weather-wise, because it was just, I'm not the person. I couldn't live in Seattle. I don't see how people can just be around rain. And I need sunshine. I need light. I need all of that on a regular basis. It don't have to be every single day, but at least a regular basis. So I'm so glad things are kind of turning. I'm hoping we're going to at least look like spring, if we don't even feel like it quite yet, going into the latter part of winter. But everything else has been good. Praise the Lord. No issues or anything. So just kind of staying on top of 2021 as it progresses along here.
Right. So. Yeah, I hear you. And speaking of 2021, thinking about what we're going to talk about today in this lovely podcast episode of let's call it the crash and burn, man. Because it's been something. You know, when 2020 we put a wrap on it, I thought 2021 was going to be like, okay, you know what? Let's new year, new, you know.
No, girl, like my sister said, 2021 ain't nothing but 2020 with a wig on.
The skies, I love it.
The skies say the same thing.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So a couple weeks ago, and it's still kind of going on even right now, just to be completely transparent and honest, it's a day-by-day thing, man. So notice that, you know, we talked about in the first episode, mental, emotional, physical, and I'm blanking now, spiritual, thank you, and spiritual awareness and self-discovery. So I had a moment of realizing that my emotional, and I guess my mental too, and both the emotional and mental pieces of it was just off, you know, like irritable, anxious all the time, and I say depressed, and I know there's like clinical depression and there's other levels of depression, and I'm not in that field, medical, like psychologist or whatever, but moments where you'd be like crying and you'd be like, what am I crying for? Like moments like where you just like, what in the world? Agitated, just not myself. And then even physically feeling like physical stuff, like stuff hurting, stuff aching, and I am a person that carries stress in my body. So even if it's in front of mind for me, something I'm stressed about, if it's on a subconscious level, I know it's there because I feel it in my body. So it was one of those moments where I had to stop and be like, you know what? I'm going through the motions. I'm showing up to work. I'm showing up wherever I need to be and where I'm supposed to be, but I'm not okay. You know what I mean? Like there's something going on, something not right. And a lot of that came from, well, let me take a step back. First, acknowledging the fact that I wasn't okay, I think was really important and really big, right? Because it's like, you can kind of just keep going with it and, all right, it'll get better. It'll be all right.
Right.
And just kind of move on from it. But just acknowledging that I wasn't okay. And then shout out to Miss Iyanla Van Sant. She had mentioned one time, it's okay not to be okay. You don't have to be like strong all the time and just kind of trying to conquer the world all the time. But then at the same time, after acknowledging it, realizing that I just needed to like take a minute to reflect on what was causing all of it and what was the root of the problem. And so in that moment, and I'm still in the point of reflecting, right? So what I got bad, but I'm still like reflecting on different things. But I had to like realize how much has happened over the last year for me. So even though everybody's been going through the pandemic, everybody's been going through the virus and everything else, but I didn't realize that, like, for me, life was happening while life was happening for me. Like, it was like a double whammy of events for me. So just to like get like this a little bit of history, not too much into it, but so before everything hit, and Charity, like, and excuse my French, the hell I went through.
Yes. Honey. I was like, this is not a good Lifetime movie. We need to close this.
Oh, girl, I can write a movie.
Tyler Perry was writing your script.
I'm telling you. So just to put it as a summary of it, before the pandemic, right? So home for me,
right?
How many months ago? Probably like maybe 7 months or so before the pandemic hit, I'd say, maybe. But
yes,
just let's say prior to everything going down, like home was a war zone, traumatic space to be. It was just not a nice, fun. And I'm saying this lightly. I can't even explain. I don't have the words to explain.
Yes, you give it the G-rated version. You really are.
But I didn't feel. It wasn't a safe place, mentally, emotionally, and that sometimes, just physically, it wasn't, I did not feel safe at home. And so, home was just like, I didn't want to be there because it wasn't a nice place to be. So during that time, fortunately, I had work, I had church, I had other outings, like, finding productive things to do at my time out of the house. So they had like jazz festivals in the park and all this different things like that I'd find to do. Work was going really, really good. I was, crushing it at my job, getting more involved in church, and just, again, finding productive ways to use my time. That was a great way to have some relief from all of the stuff that was going on at home. And so, fast forward, there was we did have the separation. So we weren't living together when the pandemic hit. So that was something that was good. So it was almost like home was not as traumatic because I didn't have someone else, like all the cause of the trauma and everything.
Yes.
Right. So that was a blessing, and that was good. And then after that, the pandemic hit. And so, of course, everything that I was using as the relief, work, church, outings, got shut down, right? So,
all the way down.
All the way down. And guess
through
the thing that I had left that I was confined to, like you can't really go anywhere, was the place of trauma, was the place that I had like every day, all day, a heightened level of anxiety and stress and just just turmoil. And during that time frame, like when everything finally shut down, it was like in 1 week, like because I was crushing it at work, I thought I was blessed to be able to get a promotion. So that was like, hey, that's a great thing. I started, that was of course in March. So Monday, I started the new gig. By that Wednesday, I, got a text from my ex-husband saying that he officially was like talking about divorce and send me the paperwork and all this stuff like that. And then by that Friday, my boss was telling me that, yeah, we're all gonna be working from home from this point going out. We're going forward. So all this is like a snapshot of everything in 1 week that I'm dealing with. It's like work is changing, relationship, marriage stuff is changing, and then life is changing with the pandemic. It's like everybody's now got to be home. And so that was a very just stressful time that, Charity, I just went through it. I just took it in stride. I'm resilient. I'm tough. I'm bad. I got it.
And at the time, we didn't think it was going to be a months on months kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. You're just thinking like, oh yeah, they'll get it together. We always get it together. We're not going to be in here for a long, and it's a year later. By the
not
way. Right. We're coming up on a year later.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. It's
they
crazy.
fooled us good.
Yes.
Yes, it is. But we still here, thank the Lord. We
are, and that's a blessing. We are still here. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I think it was, and I don't know if I get it from like the societally, if that's even a word or whatever, like as a Black woman, you can't show weakness. You gotta be strong. Mm-hmm. You gotta be like, have it all together because you just can't be caught slipping. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's genetically or just, I don't know, but there's something that made me feel like I had to be strong. I had to be game face on all the time and not allow myself to feel. And then too, I'll be honest, like some of it was probably like not wanting to let everything that my ex-husband put me through, not wanting to let it get to me, like being able to show that you tried to like cause damage and leave damage behind. And I'm strong, I'm still, and just not allowing myself to be vulnerable or to hurt because I thought that would be weakness and that person would get pleasure out of seeing me hurt, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So all of that's going on, taking all of that in stride. And then of course, like I said, being left with the place of trauma all day, every day, and realizing all of that. Oh, and then the other thing was the George Floyd, all the social injustice, like the protests going on. I'm worried about, everybody being safe. It just, all of that goes up too. And just like, that was also going on at the same time. So it's like life's happening, plus all this stuff is going on, all this uncertainty. And then all you have is yourself to be all around the house, hemming and hawing and worrying all the time. With,
right.
Watching the news, going crazy about all the stuff that you're seeing. So it was a lot. So, and then working from home makes it hard to separate work from home too, and adjusting to that part about it. Like it bleeds over, and then I'm doing a new job. So it's like, you're kind of by yourself trying to figure out how to do a new job and stuff like that. So, I think that was what created for me, like that point of crash and burn is what I was talking about initially, right? Like I don't know what an emotional breakdown is specifically. Like I've never seen anybody have a nervous breakdown or an emotional breakdown, but I could feel like if I don't figure something out, some sort of release or something, it's inevitable that I'm going to burst. Something's got to give, right? I can't keep just taking it on and rolling with the punches and not allowing myself to release and just kind of do that inventory of figuring out like what's wrong, what's going on. So I went through all of that stuff, never stopped to say, okay, how does this make you feel? Like, what's going on for you? Like, how are you feeling about this? But then also allowing myself to, giving myself permission to feel, and knowing that feeling wasn't weakness. Feeling didn't mean I was less strong. I was actually more strong because my strength is in being able to identify something's not right, what's going on, and then I can kind of fix that part of it. So I guess that was some of what I'm currently going through and have gone through, to remedy it, and what seems to be helping, but I think it's going to take time. And this is really important for self-care. Like, people talk about self-care all the time and always been trying to figure out like what that exactly means. And self-care means different things to different people, right? Some people,
yes, it is.
Self-care is like going on a vacation. They could do a staycation. You could go to the spa, like whatever. There's a bunch of different things. And in this unique time, I just had to you got to figure out what self-care means when you can't really go anywhere. Like I just said, go on vacation, but you might not be able to actually go on vacation or anything like that. So some of the things that I did once I realized what's going on, that for me it was self-care, because I started to feel some release once I did that. Like, for example, with my job, I was definitely feeling burnout there, because it felt like I was just trying to do everything, be everything to everything. And so it's like, okay, let me just have a conversation with my boss and be like, okay, give me some specifics of what's my lane here. I can dominate it, but I just need to know what that is, so I'm not all over the place trying to cover everything. I went down to the lake, not too far from here. There are not a lot of people, because, the weather's a little bit cool, but it's not too cold, but enough, you got the lake to yourself, just kind of just relax your mind. It just, I uncluttered my space at the house, added new plants, just changing up the environment. Went through the house and thought through like every place that might have had a trigger of like, okay, some event might have had something happen there, something might have happened there. I like switched stuff around and changed it so like mentally I didn't have the same association with the stuff. So like those are like some examples of some of the things that I did that's helping. I'm still looking for new things to do, but it's just, all of that was in me, and I'm just like, wow, like, so every day, all day, I've been just plugging away with all of this in me. Like, girl, you've been through a lot and you just gotta, take that moment to just woosah, right? And just figure out a new relief, because the ones I had before, I can't do that right now, but I gotta figure some new ones out. And then just give myself permission to be, I guess, vulnerable, or be okay with not being okay for a minute until I get back to being okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what the pandemic / 2020 / 2021 / life. That's why I'm at with it.
Yeah, you said a lot in that, but you said everything in that same space, because 2020 and forward, because we're not out, is a traumatic year. There's no other word for it. There was trauma. The whole year was trauma. We didn't know it was going to be that way. We were like, okay. So in hindsight, recalling what we actually went through to even come out of 2020 and still be in 2021 is somewhat traumatic.
Absolutely traumatic. Right.
Absolutely traumatic. And that's just on the world stage. You're not even talking about your own day-to-day, just in your personal life, like with you saying with your ex-husband and breaking up and, moving forward from that, and then still trying to maintain your work life, and you're in a whole nother setting. Like, all of that we turned on a dime and had to make it work. Like, it was going down. So just the notion of just moving through all that and still staying on top of it, that's traumatic. And I think, like you were saying, with Black women, unfortunately, we've inherited a lot of things from our ancestors. We've inherited strength. We've inherited their grace. We've inherited their vitality, but we also inherited some of that trauma, where a lot of times, due to our existence in this country, we have had to step up to the plate and maintain things in spaces that we weren't necessarily, it wasn't designed for us to do that. It wasn't, if you want to take it all the way back to the enslavement of African American people in this country, you're talking about, you don't have a family unit. One moment your husband's there, or man that you want to be with is there, and then the next minute he's sold off someplace else. And then you have children and you're trying to raise them, and then the next minute they're sold off. It's like, that's trauma. Like, that trauma, even though yes, it was hundreds of years ago, but that trauma still carries down. And we've never really been in a place where, if it's not that and you do get to be a family unit, then you have to worry about, well, are you going to come home today? Are you going to make it? Is the cop not going to shoot your son? That trauma is still moving down. So we've took on the lineage of having to be strong just to maintain surviving in this trauma in a land that we call our own, when it's, it is, but we don't feel like it's our own because we're treated as foreigners here constantly. So just having that as your emotional state from pretty much from the day you're born to the day you die, and then to pass that on, it's kind of created this superwoman persona that isn't true. And instead of us being real with each other and saying like, girl, I'm not good, and embracing it, really, it's not about not saying it. We're finally in a generation where we're privileged enough to be able to stop and say that, where our foremothers didn't necessarily have that. Either they didn't have the resources to just have the time to do that, or if they did it, they had to do it for just enough to get to the next moment, because it was still a matter of survival a lot of the times from day to day, depending on what their home circumstances were, whether it was just, making sure that everyone's fed and everything got paid and kept a roof over your head. So that's one reason I think the strong, quote unquote, Black woman persona has been embedded in our society. But I'm hopeful, because we're getting to a place now where we're saying it don't have to be like that. We don't have to do that anymore. And now we can start moving forward to being okay with not being okay sometimes. And when we don't feel okay, being able to take the time like you did and reflect on it and figure out what it is that's going to make me be okay. And a way that I heard it is that to take care of yourself, self-care is an act of love. And it's not about a self-care as being, because some people look at it as, oh, that's so selfish to just want to do stuff for yourself. No, it's self-full. You want to fill yourself up so that you can be at your best self, and then you can help impact other people from your surplus, from the abundance that flows over. I was thinking of the scripture, the 23rd Psalm. We know the 23rd Psalm. We've been saying that thing since we was, little children. And it says, you anoint my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So if you're not getting that thing filled, then you don't have a run over. So if by having that self-care and taking the time to do whatever it is that makes you feel full or to be at peace, having, as I call it, shalom in your own home, having peace in your own house, it's a matter of taking the time to make it where it's a place where you can find refuge and peace. And then from that, you can flourish. And then from you flourishing, you can also impact others in a positive manner so that you don't end up being, anxious and getting irritable and being upset. And it's like, well, I feel like that's part of like the stereotype of the mad Black woman. Yeah, some women are just mad because I'm still dealing with a whole lot of other stuff that isn't even necessary for me to deal with. But unfortunately, I have to, because I'm still trying to be quote unquote strong. But if you take that part down, a lot of that other stuff will come down, and then you can really heal. So, but yeah, I hear you on a lot of that. And 2020 has definitely brought a lot of that stuff to the surface, where in our world, we tend to just keep go instead of stop and really reflect. So it was a blessing in disguise, even though it didn't feel like it for you to be kind of stopped in that moment. And it's still a process for you too, I would
It is. The blessing's still hiding from me right now, but it's eventually, because I'm still going through it. So
yes, it's a working blessing. It's working through. It prompted you to do some changes you probably wouldn't have maybe gotten around to doing as quickly, with changing your space and kind of making your home a place of peace for yourself again, where instead you would have just kept leaving it and making other places your places of peace, where having your home be your main source of peace, that's your spot of the world that belongs to you. So if you can't have peace anywhere, you need to have peace there. That's what I was like. If you can't have peace in your house, you have a problem. So
right.
Above all means, get peace in your house. Now you have that. You've reclaimed that for yourself in this process. So that's a good thing.
That's true. I didn't think about it. That's a good way to think about it, right? Like that was for a time. Well, during that time, I guess that was something, that peace was stolen from me. And I'm gonna say it like that. The peace was stolen. And then to your point, I guess if I was not at home all the time because we weren't working from home, and I was still able to have the other relief, maybe I wouldn't have dealt with making sure my home was a safe place. Maybe I would have kept running away from this place and not dealing with it. So I agree. It's just hard when you're right thick of it, but it's therapeutic to talk through it while you're going through it sometime as well. I think that makes a lot of sense. And what you said about just it being ancestral or coming from our ancestors in our past, I think that does make a lot of sense too, because I just things of like my grandmother, man, that was a strong woman. She was tough. And, you know, she told it like it was. You wouldn't mess with her. And my great grandmother, like, you know, I come from some very strong women, and we all do. And but I think about how I doubt my grandmother or my great grandmother were able to, felt safe to, or were okay to say they weren't okay. Like I never, you know, my grandmother, may she rest in peace. She did end up having a stroke before she passed. A lot of that was because of all the stress, right? She was just she was carrying a lot on her plate. So it is important, like I said, is a continual process of reflection. It's like that part of reflecting of like, wow, some of this I might be carrying that don't even really belong to me, and that's an extra part of it, and making sure only to take ownership of the stuff that's my own stuff, and then the stuff that I was like, I can't fight that battle for all my ancestors. I only can fight it because it's too much to bear. So I can only
it's just too much.
Yeah, I
surrender.
Can only fight it for me. Right. You have to.
Yeah,
you have to. That's good.
Well, I definitely can relate on the crash and burn notion. Burnout is real. It is nothing to play with, and definitely it's something you want to be ahead of. You don't want to get to a place of burnout because you don't want to end up in the hospital before you realize you need to take self-care seriously. You need to go ahead and put some things in position in your life and rituals in your life that are already self-care. You don't wait till the situation is already in a dire state before you get help. You need to get help when you see the early symptoms of an issue, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual. You need to go ahead and deal with the little things so it doesn't become a big thing. For example, I know you said you felt like your whole crash and burn was kind of like in a 1 week span where everything kind of just mountain in that week, and then it was like, ooh, this is a lot at once. I've had a crash and burn situation, instances a couple times in my life, but mine were more like slow burns where pretty much from the year 2018 through 2019, it was just constant transition of things going on. We had about 4 deaths in our family, 2 of those being my husband's father and grandfather. So, and those were the key like male figures in his life. So I'm trying to support him. Then we were trying to sell our house and buy a new one in the market. It was constantly like, as soon as you think you see a house, it's gone. So the constant, and then trying to fix up my house. And then I was trying to get the most value out of that. So that was a situation, and it wasn't coming together. It's like, and I just was like, I'm pulling the plug. Like, this is not our time. Then career-wise, artist was just now transitioning to a new job in a new career space. And then I was kind of at a stalemate at the job I was in. And I had constantly been trying to transition into something within that company. And I kept hitting a dead end. And I'm like, what's going on with that? As I know it's not me. I know what I bring to the table, but it's not breaking through. And then, of course, other people find out that you're trying to move on. People sometimes get jealous. Let's just be frank. And then that can turn your work situation into a toxic situation, which it did. And it's like, I would stay, but there are issues here and y'all don't want to fix them because I've spoken up about what could be done better. And so then that also makes my situation worse. It's like, what are y'all doing? So that in turn, all of those things collectively create the stress. So then my health start getting out of whack because of the stress, and then me trying to be strong, quote unquote, all the time to keep moving through all these things that I'm keep hitting dead ends at. So then my body is like, I can't do it anymore. And then it starts to reject. And one thing, Charity don't play. She don't play with her body. When my body start doing stuff, something has to go down. So praise the Lord, eventually I was able to go ahead and change jobs and change, directions. And we were able to sell that home and things, there was a turn in the corner. But up until that point, it was like at least a good collectively like 2-year span of this constant thing back to back to back to back. So that whole slow burn of it all. And then when I went to lunch with my coworkers, like my last week at work, and I just cried. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And she was like, it's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not. And that's when I realized how much stress and how I had taken in so much over that time period that once I got to that point where I finally felt like I was breaking through to something better, it was like, but I was holding all of that within that time. And it's like, okay, we're not going to go forward in this new season doing this. We're going to create some new rituals. So I make it now where every month I take off at least one day a month, whether it's the holiday that we're already going to get off or the months that don't have a holiday, I put a holiday. It's a me day. And then, for the last several years, we always take off a week a year for vacation just to not be at our house, just to not be home, to change our whole atmosphere, to do something different, be somewhere different, eat something different. So that helps to kind of rejuvenate, just my senses and being connected to myself, to being connected back to artists, just to revitalize our life again. And then on the days that I do take off for myself, I make sure I do something I enjoy, whether it's read a book, taking a bubble bath, have my candles going, girl, whether it's reading a magazine, just chilling, calling a friend I hadn't talked to in a long time and just catching up and just having that moment for just me. And I'm grateful. I had a mother that demonstrated that to me. So I knew what that looked like. I just had to be intentional in creating that ritual for myself. And those are the habits that I learned from her, as well as going on vacation. That's something my family was consistent about, because to make sure that self-care was a part of our lifestyle. It wasn't just every once in a while kind of thing. Like, no, it's your lifestyle. And that's really how you got to treat it. Back to the 23rd Psalm, in the first verse, he's like, he makes me lie down in green pasture. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He makes me lie down, because naturally we're not going to lie down. We just want to keep going. But he makes you lie down. Why? Because you need it. He makes you go beside the still waters, because the still waters is a place of peace and calm. And he restores your soul at the same time of doing all that, because it's important. It's really necessary for you to be able to be your best person. So just making that a habit pays off when you're intentional.
Absolutely. You have to, because if you don't, you crash and burn.
Yep. As I like to say, if you don't deal with your issues will deal with you.
They will. They will. They'll come out in different ways.
Right.
But that's a lot that you were going through. And I think we all can relate to that moment of like, you're holding things in, go through the motions, and then you wait until everything's done. And then you can like breathe that sigh of relief, not realizing that sigh of relief has so many other emotions that come with it. Like the tears are like just the relief, but I'm thinking it was like a mix of emotions there of just like, I don't know if it's anger, upset, frustration of why you even had to like all of this stuff at one time of like, it is done. Just, wow. That's a lot to go through. Right.
Yeah.
But it shows like as we're talking about all of this, it shows just how strong we are, which is good, but it's just a matter of, like we're talking about intertwining the self-care with, like, we don't have to wait until everything gets right before we do self-care. You can do it while, like, I read this one book, I can't remember the lady's name, but she talked about being happy while instead of happy when. So don't wait until everything's over and all finished before you can actually be happy, So that's one of the things I took away from that too, of like reminding myself not to wait until, like, even as we're talking now, like, well, it's not completely, I'm still working through the process. Well, I could still be happy or content figuring it out and trying to adjust to the idea of self-care while you're going through in the midst of it. The world's not going to fall apart. It's still, it'll be there when you get back. It'll be all right. It
sure will.
Yeah, right.
And I'm gonna be better at it. Right? Better for it. Yeah.
And the other commonality is, like you said about your health, man. I think that's so key. That I think you had that experience where your health took a hit. I had that experience back before, like during that traumatic time at the house when my ex-husband was still living with me. there was twice that I got like sick because your immune system is being taxed. And I'm like, wow. And after that, of course, it never, like, you get I got a fever, I got cold, all this stuff's going on. I was like, what in the world? But it's just crazy how your body will talk to you by telling you. And then at that point, when your body's talking to you, I think you've gone too far.
That's how I feel too.
Before it gets to that point. So that's why it's so important to have the self-care in between, as part of the process. So I love all the ones that you do, like taking the time off for yourself, doing something you enjoy. I'm interested to see how you guys handle the week vacation, considering you can't go anywhere. Like, how do you rethink that? Do you wait until everything's over and safe again? And if you can't, like, how do y'all do that?
I still go. I'm not scared.
It's not about being scared. It's about being...
I feel like the same notions and parameters I'm taking here is the same stuff I'm going to do there.
That's cool.
And then a lot of these places aren't at the capacity that they normally are either, because they want people to still come because they can make some kind of money instead of making no money at all.
That's true.
So it's probably to some degree cleaner, safer, fresher now than it ever was before.
You would hope so.
Right. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm still go out and about, just try to be mindful and wise with how we make our moves. But I'm not going to stay here, and I still want to get away, even if it's nothing but a couple of days in a different spot. It's just a matter of I'm not at home, because even being in your home, especially now since we do work from home, I love my home. I enjoy my home. Home is still a place for peace for me. But sometimes walking away from it and then coming back to it makes you feel like, oh, yes, my home. I really enjoy my home.
Yeah.
So it makes you kind of long for it again when you kind of leave and then come back. And then I don't have to worry about light bills, water bills.
Right.
I just show up, enjoy the stuff, and then okay, I'm gone. So whatever I do during that time, I'm there.
Exactly.
That's y'all's bill. It ain't mine.
Right. That's cool.
So,
but that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, yeah, that's good. I hope to take some time off this year. So I didn't go. Well, I did get to go to the cabin.
Yes, little things.
Yeah, finding something to do this year is gonna be good. But the key is self-care while, not self-care when it's all over. So this is a good conversation. I think what we got to do now that we both know how we handle stress and how we handle the pressures of life, I think we got to, as a sisterhood, hold each other accountable to the self while. And two of us, as well as our friends and family, like all the other people that we know, when we see them go, and just helping them know that, hey, have you had any self-care time? Whatever that means for you, take some time to relax, relate, release, and take some time for yourself. So you hold me to that, and I'm gonna hold you to that as well, to make sure we both do that.
I approve of this message. Yes, that sounds good.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in to the Truth, Lies, and Consequences podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening. Please check us out on our Facebook group, as well as if you have Apple Podcasts, please be sure to rate us and comment.